There's a number sitting in your retirement account right now. It feels safe. It feels real. It probably isn't. Not because anyone's stealing it, because of what happens to it while you're not looking. Here's the uncomfortable part. Millions of people right now are doing everything they were told to do. Saving diligently, contributing to a 401k, buying the recommended mix of stocks and bonds, and they're still on track to hit retirement age and discover the plan simply doesn't work anymore. Not because they made a mistake, because the whole system it was built on has quietly changed underneath them. Today we're breaking down three separate traps stacked on top of each other that together explain why the classic idea of retirement, work hard, save for decades, stop working entirely at 65, is already dead for a huge portion of the middle class, even if nobody's updated the marketing yet. Let's start with the trap almost nobody questions: the math. Every retirement calculator on Earth runs on one comforting assumption that a dollar today is roughly worth a dollar tomorrow, just with a bit of growth stacked on top. That assumption is quietly false, and it's been false for a very long time. Inflation isn't some occasional side effect of a struggling economy. It's a built-in feature of how modern currencies actually function. Central banks openly target a couple percent of inflation every single year on purpose, forever. That's not a crisis. That's the design. It sounds small, it isn't. Money that loses 2 to 3% of its value every year loses roughly half its purchasing power every 20 to 25 years, not because something went wrong, just because of time quietly doing its job. So picture someone in their 30s right now, diligently saving toward $1 million retirement number by 2050. By the time they actually get there, that $1 million in real purchasing power may look a lot closer to 250,000 of today's dollars. Same number on the account statement, a quarter of the actual life it can buy. And rent, groceries, and healthcare don't politely wait for your savings account to catch up. They just keep moving. Here's the part that should really bother you. This isn't a prediction of something going wrong down the road. This is the system working exactly as designed. Currencies are built to slowly devalue over time. Retirement plans are sold to you as if they don't. So if the math is already quietly stacked against you, what happens when you add a shrinking number of people actually paying into the system that's supposed to support you? That's trap number two, the demographic trap. Public pension systems in almost every wealthy country run on the same basic model. Today's workers pay for today's retirees. It's not a personal savings account sitting in a vault somewhere with your name on it. It's a chain of trust between generations, where each new generation funds the one that came before it. That chain only works if each new generation is roughly the same size or bigger than the one before it. In most Tier 1 economies right now, that's simply no longer true. People are having fewer children. Life expectancy keeps climbing. The chain is getting thinner at exactly the moment it needs to hold more weight than ever before. In the 1960s, several working taxpayers supported every one retiree in most developed economies. Today, that ratio has been cut roughly in half in many of these countries. A few decades from now, some projections put it closer to 2 workers for every retiree and still shrinking. Strip away the flags and the official government language, and this structure has an uncomfortable resemblance to something regulators would shut down instantly if a private company tried running it. New participants funding payouts to earlier participants with no actual pool of stored wealth sitting underneath the whole thing. Nobody built this to be a scam. It made perfect sense in an era of growing populations and shorter retirements when people didn't live nearly as long after they stopped working. But the demographic math it depends on has quietly flipped, and the promises made decades ago haven't been rewritten to match the new reality, which leaves governments with only a handful of real options: raise taxes on an already shrinking working population, cut benefits, push the retirement age later and later, or quietly let inflation erode what retirees actually receive in real terms without ever calling it a cut. Look closely at policy in country after country, and you'll notice most governments are quietly doing some blend of all four at once, usually without ever admitting out loud that's what's actually happening. So the public safety net is straining, which is exactly why financial advisors keep telling you to take control and build your own private safety net instead. Except that solution comes with its own quiet trap. That's trap number 3, the illusion that there's a safe way out of this on your own. For generations, the advice was simple: work hard, save diligently, and put the safe portion of your money into things like bonds and bank deposits. Boring, stable, reliable. Here's the uncomfortable update nobody sent out. In an environment of persistent inflation, safe assets are frequently the ones quietly losing the most value in real terms year after year without a single dramatic headline announcing it. A bond or savings account paying a modest, steady interest rate can still leave you meaningfully worse off if inflation runs even slightly hotter than that rate, compounding invisibly in the background while your account statement looks perfectly fine. So what happens? People chase yield instead. They move money into stocks, real estate, increasingly speculative assets, not out of greed, but out of self-defense, simply trying to keep pace with a currency that's quietly losing ground every single year. That's a completely rational decision for any one individual to make, but multiply it across millions of retirement age savers, all making the same move at roughly the same time, and you get something else entirely. A system where the safe retirement plan has quietly transformed into mandatory participation in financial markets at precisely the point in life when people can least afford to absorb a serious loss. Every market downturn now lands hardest on exactly the people who have the least time to recover from it, those within a few years of retirement, watching decades of careful, disciplined saving take a hit right when they need that money the most. The system didn't fail these people in some dramatic, visible way. It quietly redefined what safe actually means, without ever announcing the change out loud. So here's where all 3 traps meet. The math trap means your number is worth meaningfully less than it looks on the screen. The demographic trap means the public backup plan is straining under the weight of its own structure. And the solution trap means the private backup plan now quietly demands you take on risk you were told for decades to avoid entirely. None of this means saving is pointless. It absolutely isn't. It means the specific promise sold to your parents' generation: save diligently for 40 years, retire comfortably, and stop working entirely, was built for a version of the world that simply doesn't exist anymore. The honest version of this conversation isn't "don't save." It's stop assuming the old rules still apply just because everyone keeps repeating them. The number that felt safe on paper 20 years ago doesn't mean what it used to. The public system that felt guaranteed no longer runs on the demographics it was designed for, and the private safety net that was supposed to feel calm and boring now quietly requires the same risk tolerance as active investing, whether anyone signed up for that or not. Millions of people are about to discover this all at once, at the exact moment they can least afford to start over, not because they were careless, because they trusted a set of assumptions that quietly stopped being true decades before anyone bothered to say so out loud. The uncomfortable question worth sitting with isn't whether you're saving enough. It's whether the entire definition of enough was ever built to survive contact with the world we're actually living in now.